I can barely put it in frame. It's massive. Anyway, hello lovely people. In this video, we will be looking at US amps USA-SQ442 4-channel Class AB amplifier. Before we start, I would like to thank Michael from US Amps for sending me one of these. I had my eye on this for quite a while and it took quite a long time to get it into UK, but it's finally here, so we're gonna have a look at this. Now, I'm gonna call this, while I'm gonna open it, I'm gonna call this amplifier. Why not? In a way that some products are made when the designer has very little limitations and he's gonna going by the principle, just hold my beer and see what I can do. So there are a lot of products that we as car audio people not necessarily need them, but it's like, why the hell not? For example, Stereo Integrity and One Audio are making 24-inch infinite baffle subwoofer. Now, do you really need that kind of sub? No, maybe, but why not? Audio-Tech Fisher very recently released an amplifier with Hypex modules which have ridiculous distortion numbers. Now, do we need it? No, really, but why not? So this amplifier is kind of the same, and the why not part is coming from the power ratings. It came with a birth sheet. All of these amplifiers are rated and tested at 12 volts, not 14.4, not 13 something, but 12 volts. So whatever numbers you have, if you're running at a higher voltage, which all the people do, you will have more power than it is rated. Now, if we're going to have a look at the manual here in the power rating department, we have 4 times 180, which is quite a lot, but again, remember, this is at 12 volts. At 2 ohms, 300 times 4. And at 1 ohm, 400 times 4. So this amplifier is stable and is rated at 1 ohm. For a Class AB amplifier, not many really can do that, just a few. I was looking at some specs and I found a Mosconi, I don't remember the model number, but it is rated at 1 ohm, however, only on music. So now probably you're asking, what is it so different and important that the amplifier has a 1 ohm rating for individual channels? Some Class D amplifiers can do that, but for Class AB is not typical and not usual. You do this because when you bridge this amplifier, this is a 4-channel amplifier. You can bridge it to 2 channels, and all the time, whenever you have a Class AB amplifier, you bridge it, the bridge channels are stable only down to 4 ohms, so you cannot load it any lower. However, this, since it is a very high power amplifier and you can load it down to 1 ohm individually, when you bridge the channels, you can load it to 2 ohms. So you can run potentially a pair of 2 ohm nominal load subwoofers. Now, question is, why would you do that? Why would you want a Class AB amplifier that is really inefficient? Why would you want to run subwoofers on it? Again, why not? A few more specs that I want to show you from the manual is THD at 4 ohms below 0.05, which is very good, especially for this power amplifier, is highly respectable. It needs 250 amps fuse. You will need more if you run it at 1 ohm. Input sensitivity is up to 6 volts. So if you have a less powerful DSP or a head unit like outputting 4 volts, you will need to touch the gain. But if you have something like a Helix that does 8 volts out, you're going to be solid. And the frequency response is 10 to 24. We're going to have a look. We're going to see. But I think Class AB amplifiers, typically, the frequency response, it goes up to like wherever. So we're gonna check that as well. I am lucky enough that I have absolutely no idea about this brand, US Amps. I know it's an old school brand. They used to make very good amplifiers, I don't know, in the 90s? I have no idea. And I consider this lack of knowledge a good thing, because when I'm approaching this amplifier review, I am absolutely not biased. I have no expectations, and my approach is going to be just, let's see what happens. Because if I would have an Alpine amplifier here, obviously I feel something towards it, but this to me is just another amplifier. So in this video, we're gonna have a look at a few things. We're gonna look at the actual amplifier, we're gonna show you all the connections and everything, and we're gonna have a look at all the distortion measurements for this amplifier. Now, yes, online you're gonna find some amp dynos. I think Derek did it, and he had very impressive numbers. But in my channel, as you know, we look a bit more deeper, and we're looking at all the intricate details on the performance of the amplifier. So, first of all, this amplifier from outside, it is bloody huge. It's a surfboard. It's not as heavy as I was expecting. It's not as wide, but it's long. Now this color, I don't know how it goes through the camera, but this, like in the spec sheet, it's orange, but in reality, to me, this is copper. It's the same color as a copper wire, similar to gold, and to me it looks less orange. I guess it depends on the sunlight, because when the sunlight hits in this, it looks very cool. So the design of amplifier is kind of old school. We have this heatsink that you see in a lot of different places. On one side of the amplifier, man, it's so long I cannot show you properly. We have power inputs and speaker outputs. On this side there's nothing else. Now here you see USA 1 ohm stable. A palm tree, this is for Florida because it is designed and engineered in Florida. Now power terminals, 0 gauge, because you will need a lot of power for this amplifier. The efficiency of Class AB is horrible. So this is slightly baffles me, like why would you need such a powerful Class AB amplifier that is like 50% or even less efficient? Who is this amplifier for? I have absolutely no idea. And on this side we have inputs, well, our 4 RCA inputs. We have gain knob for channel 1, 2 separate and 3, 4 separate. Then we have our high pass filter selection and our low pass filter selection that goes, this is up to 5 kilohertz and this is 50 hertz to 500 hertz. And we have a toggle selection that we can select between high pass, full if you use it with a DSP, and low pass or band pass filter. And that's pretty much enough. That's all what you need, because in today's world, most of the time this is going to be a run active. Now I'm going to show you something even more prettier than the outside of it, which is the inside. Just look at that. Upside down, of course. Ooh, this is very, very pretty. Now we have a lot of glare, so let me remove this plexi cover for us to see it a bit better. Now from the gut shot, this amplifier is a real beauty. You cannot deny that. And to be honest, everything looks very simplistic. So we do have a fan. It is actively cooled, just because, again, it is a Class AB amplifier. If you're gonna push it hard, it's gonna get very hot. On the primary, these caps over there, they're 25 volts. Typically you have a 16 volt cap. 25 volt caps are gonna have a lot of headroom in case you're gonna decide to run at like 16 volts or so. 2 toroidal transformers, massive, seated very well. And on secondary we have 63 volt caps, and there's a bunch of them. Now this, what I like about these, you can see it is branded wire, US amps. It's a very nice touch. We have a PCB as well, US amps, SQ442. The layout is very nice. Everything looks symmetrical, apart from one thing that I want to point out now, and I'm going to show you in the measurements as well. So this fan, yeah, it goes here, and you have these wires, and it does plug in somewhere there. Now this is one of the channels, because I assume that's going to be something like channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and channel 4. So you can see that this fan and the wire and the connection is closest to one specific channel. I'm not sure which one exactly is it. And for example, this one, if there's the channel there, it's as far away as possible. So I want to show you, because I think this fan introduces some noise. So now while I have the plexi off, I'm gonna disconnect the fan. I'm gonna take a few measurements again just to verify that, because my suspicion was that that noise was introduced by the fan. And like inside, it just looks lovely. this amp is designed to be displayed just like that. Because like this orange, yes, it looks old school, it looks kind of nice, but like if you show the amp guts, it looks much nicer. While I was measuring this amplifier and I was thinking about it, the main question that I had is, who is this amplifier for? Because if we take, for example, simple SQ-minded people, they don't need 180 watts or probably more than 200 watts per channel for tweeters and mid-ranges, because since it's an SQ amplifier, it's supposed to be run on mids and tweets. At least people think like that. However, when you have such a high power amplifier, it really doesn't make sense, because the headroom that you're getting from this amplifier, if you're running your tweeters on 5 watts, what is the point of buying such a massive and expensive amplifier just to use literally 1% of its capability? So with this amplifier, my guess, you would be running either subwoofers, either extremely beefy mid-bass drivers. For example, the Helix i5's mid-bass that they need 200 watts or so, and you can wire them down to 1 ohm, because this amplifier is stable 1 ohm per channel, so you can do that. But I think everybody that's buying this amplifier is going to be using it for mids and tweets, and I think, and again, this is just my personal opinion, that is just a waste. Unless you have 10 mid-ranges and 10 tweeters per door, then yes, load it down to 1 ohm and you have heaps of power, plenty of power. So again, I am not familiar with this brand, US Amps. I don't know their selection. I know they have a 3-way set. I know they have massive monoblocks, but is it an SQ brand? Is it an SPL? Is it SQL? I have no idea. Based on power ratings, I would assume it's going to be SQL, but I guess we will see. We're going to have a look at the measurements. So I think let's not waste any more time, because looking from outside is just a typical amplifier. It's just big. Let's jump into the laptop and let's see how it performs. So I want to show you something very quickly that caught me a little bit off guard. Ignore that nothing is connected, because now I'm just double checking the noise without the fan. Voltage 13.27. When I'm turning it on, the light red, green, and the amperage 0.76, 0.75 amps. So for this powerful big amplifier, class AB amplifier, less than 1 amp is extremely little. With the fan on, it was 0.8, so now it's a bit less because the fan is off. This to me is an indication that this amplifier runs in class B, not really biased towards A. Now in this amplifier there's no biasing pot, so you cannot adjust the bias, but for a highly biased class AB amplifier of this size, you would be looking at probably, I don't know, more than 3 amps. This is very little. This is like class D amplifier, so for efficiency is great, for heat is great, but for distortion, we're gonna have a look. And if anybody asks what I'm measuring with, I'm using Quantasylum QA403 and REW. A lot of people know, but for those that don't know, this is what I'm using. Basically, this is the budget option of audio precision. Let's start with the stuff that I always forget to say. So efficiency, I did calculate it at 4 ohms, which was 42.8%, and at 2 ohms, for some reason, a little bit more efficient, 45.6%, but it's typical 45% for class AB. Very typical and highly inefficient. Like, look, if you want 100 watts at 4 ohms, you basically need almost 20 amps of current, which is, yeah. Imagine if you're going to be running subwoofers, 700 watts on each channel, times 2, you need a battery that could sustain about 3 kilowatts of power. Very inefficient. That is why I'm not sure who is this amplifier for. Okay, other stuff. Idle current already mentioned, 0.8. A hiss, audible hiss from the tweeters. No, absolutely no audible hiss from the tweeters. Yay! Channel separation between channel 1 and 2, it's almost 80 decibels. For the channels 3 and 4 is more than 100 decibels channel separation. So like like channel 3 and 4, it's almost like a totally separate circuit, and most likely channel 1 and 2 is going to be on one side of the circuit board and 3 and 4 on the other side of the circuit board, and that's why they have almost no crosstalk at all. Damping factor, so this is the output impedance, which is, you can see, between 0.014 and 0.018. Very low. If you calculate for a 4 ohm load, that's going to be between 220 and 300 for the different channels, which is, again, great. Now, let's go to this, the most important thing, the THD versus power or level. When I did the first sweep, I had to double and triple check all my settings and connections and calibration, because I got 268 watts per channel into 4 ohms. This is just ridiculous. I did one sweep at 2 ohms, and at 2 ohms, we've got 433 watts per channel. I didn't do it at 1 ohm just because I don't have that powerful resistors. This was done on the resistor bank that I usually use for monoblocks, which can sustain up to 1 kilowatt. I don't have a 1 ohm load that would do that, but this is just literally ridiculous. And this was measured at 13.2 volts. So again, it was rated 180, which is here at 12 volts. As the owner mentioned, it is underrated slightly. And yeah, it's like, what are you gonna feed this? Even if you're not looking at 1% clipping, if we're looking at here, let's say 220 watts, what are you gonna feed 220 watts times 4? Tweeters? Definitely. How many tweeters are you gonna put? 10? And this is what I mean. This amplifier for an SQ setup for mid-ranges and tweeters, to me personally, it's a bit ridiculous. Look, for tweeters, you're going to be using 1 to 5 watts, somewhere here. So it's going to be this range. If you're listening at like 2 watts, this is already 0.1% THD plus noise. And it's not only THD plus noise. If we're going to go to THD itself, there we go. It doesn't change at all, because I'm going to show you later why. But basically, this is total harmonic distortion. The noise, it doesn't influence this because the noise is much lower. You have mid-ranges and tweeters that are cleaner than this. This is why, again, in my opinion, it doesn't really make sense to use this amplifier for a single mid-range or a single tweeter. This is for an SQL setup where you have multiple drivers, or for very, very beefy mid-bass drivers. In regards to the total THD plus noise, if we have a look, and the manual, as I mentioned, is 0.05 and below. And yes, like 10 watts and above, all the way up to 200, which is rated, again, it's rated 180. We do have below 0.05. The lowest it dips on this one, green channel, which is channel number 2, 0.02. And the highest, the blue one, which is channel 3, 0.036, which again, very, very good results, especially for this much power. It's very good. This is nothing really magical or special, because you know my Alpines, they do go down to probably like this point. However, the V12 60, 70, 80 watts, much less power. This is a powerhouse. And again, and 2 ohms, we do have kind of the same, slightly higher distortion at 2 ohms across the board, but it's still clean. Again, below 0.05, it just ramps up here, and then it starts to ramp up about 370 watts, which is really a lot of power. If you have, I don't know, 10-inch subwoofers, which take about 350 watts of power, you could run 4 10-inch subwoofers on this amplifier, which is just ridiculous. Okay, let's have a look at other measurements. I did all the measurements on channel number 2 because it was the quietest. Okay, let's actually talk about this, the fan. Do you remember when I said that the fan kind of introduces a little bit of a noise? Okay, this is just noise, nothing is playing. So if I'm going to zoom out, you can see this is the power supply switching frequency, and if I'm going to zoom in, we do have this little blip at 183 hertz. So this is on channel 1. On channel 2, we have literally nothing. Then on channel 3, we do have a little bit more, you can see, and others. And channel 4, which is this one, this is the worst. This is absolutely nothing playing, no signal, just the noise. Actually, I should readjust this because it looks, yeah, something like that. This noise is introduced by the fans. My grid in the UK is 50 Hertz, which is here. If it would be harmonics from the grid, it would be 50, 100, 150, 200, and so on. If it would be like in America, it would be 60, 120, 180, and so on. And this is fan, because if I have the same channel 4, this one, channel 4 with fan off, absolutely nothing. And with the fan off, if I'm going to show you all of them, channel 3, channel 2, channel 1, absolutely nothing. When you unplug the fan, all of these little thingies go away. And this is what I was talking about when I showed you the layout of the fan that is closer to one channel and it's further for the other ones. Probably channel 1 and 2 is going to be on the top, and channel 4 is going to be the closest one to the fan and to the connection. That's why I took the measurements of channel 2, which doesn't have this and is the cleanest channel from all of them. So let's have a look at the spectrum. This is 1 kilohertz spectrum, and you can see all of these harmonics, all this forest. And this forest of harmonics is an indication of underbiased transistors. That means that they are not biased heavily towards like class A, and they're running on class B. That's why we have very low idle current, and that's why we have this. For example, I'm going to show you as well, this is Alpine MRP F600, which I own, and I measured it as well, and this is the same. So you see, there's loads of harmonics because that amplifier, I'm going to show you by itself, it's underbiased as well, and it has all of this forest of harmonics. The same we have on Audison Quattro, because it measures almost identical to the Alpine. It is underbiased as well, and I think this is, I don't want to say a problem, but kind of a problem of high power class AB amplifiers, that in order for them to make a lot of power, they have to be underbiased, because otherwise they're gonna overheat. Simple as that. Another thing that we see from this is the noise floor. The noise floor is much higher on this US-Amps amp compared to the Alpine and the Audison. But again, Audison and Alpine, well, Audison is an SQ amp. Alpine technically is, but nobody considers this as SQ amp. And this one, it's advertised as SQ. However, the signal to noise ratio is a bit lower than these two. Now, on paper, it has a very good signal to noise ratio because, as most amplifiers, it is measured at full power, and when you have 260 watts of power, it's very easy to get that massive signal to noise ratio, because again, even if you have quite loads of harmonics and everything, when you have that signal so high in level, kind of reduces everything. We do see similar picture on Zapco amps as well, because those are very powerful and they are underbiased as well. So total harmonics distortion is relatively high just because it is underbiased and it has all of these. This measurement, as always, is at 5 watts, not 10, not 20, not 50, at 5 watts, because as I mentioned in previous videos, I'm comparing amplifiers from SQ perspective, and 5 watts is a good power to run mid-ranges and tweeters, where we typically use the good amplifiers. So the number itself, 0.07, it's not bad at all, but for example, the same Alpine, 0.01. Audison Quattro, 0.016 as well. Much lower, but it is what it is. Intermodulation, 60 Hz and 7K. I would like to see these harmonics below 80 dB. So it is kind of on the edge between good and, I don't want to say bad, but yeah, if they would be like 60-50, it would be bad. So I don't want to say it's bad. It could be better, but again, this amplifier, from what I'm seeing, is designed more for power. Now, again, if you would increase the biasing on the transistors, these harmonics would go away. These would go away as well. So I'm not sure if they can change the biasing on the request. Like if you're buying an amplifier and you request for it to be biased slightly higher so that you would get probably a bit less power but cleaner, because I think this amplifier has a lot of potential to be much cleaner than it actually is. So again, It's not bad, but there are some intermodulation. If we have a look at higher frequency intermodulation, 18 and 20K, we have this. We have, again, a forest. The highest harmonics are slightly above 60 dB and then a little bit lower. So it's not great, but it's not tragic as well. And to me, like this, especially this measurement, to me personally, it has a lot to do with how the high frequency sound, how tweeters sound. The less harmonics you have, the better high frequency content sounds. So again, this is not due to the class of the amplifier, because a lot of people say that, oh, class AB amplifier automatically sounds good at high frequencies. Like, not all of them. I do have class D amplifier measurements that measure much better, and I have some that measure much worse, even class AB that measure worse than this. So again, I would like to see everything at least below 60, ideally lower than that. So it's not bad, it's not tragic, but it could be better. And again, if you would increase the biasing, all of this would go away. Now, I do have exactly the same measurements for 2 ohm load, and they're the same. There's literally no differences at all. Everything is exactly the same, which is good because it doesn't get worse. Usually, when you lower the ohm load to 2 ohms from 4, the measurements get worse. But in this case, they don't get worse. They're fine. This is multitone distortion, and we can see kind of the same as we saw from intermodulation, that at higher frequencies, we do have a little bit of a noise. Again, not horrible, but there is some. Low frequencies perform perfectly, so if you put this amplifier on mid-bass and subwoofers, it's going to perform amazing. And the last thing we're going to check is the frequency response. For this, I'm going to zoom out, and if you remember from the specs, it was said that the frequency response is like from 10 to 24 kilohertz or something. So at 20K, we are not losing anything at all. Maybe like 0.2 or something. I would need to zoom in quite a lot. But at 40 kilohertz, which is something here, we're losing less than 1 decibel. This was measured at 98K. If you would measure higher, probably it's going to measure higher as well. Class AB amplifiers don't have problems typically with high frequency extension. They can play all the way. And going down, again, at 10 hertz, we're not losing anything. And literally, we're going 5 dB down at 2 hertz. So for infinite baffle, when you need your subs play down to 10 hertz, yeah, it's going to do that. So you can see 1 dB down at 5 hertz. So we can say 2020, absolutely flat like a DAC. Amazing. And that's pretty much it. So in some regards, like this amplifier, power-wise, is a beast. And this is why I have that question. Who is this amplifier for? Who needs 230 watts of power per channel for mids and tweets? You really don't. Yes, you can run a mid and tweet actively on this amplifier, but for me, it's just such a waste. It's like buying an SUV and you never go off-road, or like buying a Lambo and never go on a racetrack. It's like, what is the point then? I think, and again, some people are going to be angry at me that I'm saying this, but to me, this amplifier is made for old school people that imagine that there's nothing better than Class AB amplifiers, and think, especially Americans, that power is everything. Because when you look at Derek's videos, when in general you look at amplifier measurements online, everything is just about power, 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 and power. So yes, you have loads of power. Yes, it is Class AB amplifier. Is it a good amplifier? Yes, it is a high quality amplifier. It does perform amazing. The build quality is amazing. It looks amazing. However, for reliable performance at those higher power levels, in my view, there was made a compromise to under-bias it, and in that regard, it has quite a lot of distortion. And again, that distortion is not extortionate. Some people say that you won't be able to hear anything below 0.1%. So this, basically all of this where amplifier is performing. In my book, I have a set criteria of 0.1 and 0.01. Everything that is below 0.01 is excellent, superb, and amazing. everything below 0.01 and 0.1 is good, and everything above 0.1 is, in my opinion, bad. So this amplifier falls into good category, and I would highly recommend getting it for more power hungry drivers. But if you want to get this amplifier purely just to run a pair of tweeters and a pair of mid-ranges, I personally would recommend to get something else. Not that you would hear a difference, maybe you would be able to hear a difference, that is highly debatable, but from all the measurements, there are better amplifiers for low power SQ purposes. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.